Hi, I'm Nikki Ryberg. I am a career coach and resume writer. I help clients figure out what they want to do and then how to best go about doing it in terms of a career or job. And one of the things that I love the most about my business is that I am fascinated by all topics that could help my job seekers or clients. And so, probably a couple months ago, I was at a networking event and I met the lovely Cheryl Gregory, and she mentioned she's a patience expert. So, a little bit about Cheryl. In her 40 years in business, she has worked in nearly every corporate role, from receptionist to national sales director, and finally, president of Travolcar Tours of Canada. I know I was going to say that one wrong. During that time, she saw or experienced the positive outcomes of good leadership, as well as the struggle and detrimental effects of poor leadership. One of her missions is to bring an end to the struggle so that leaders, employees, and organizations can thrive with increased revenues and collaborative cultures. Her mission is to provide effective strategies for dealing with people and events that trigger anger, fear, overwhelm, and other emotions that consume personal energy, hijack decision-making abilities, and drain happiness. All of these are things that hit my clients, especially waiting to hear back on a phone call for an interview, an offer, an internal promotion they've really been gunning for, figuring out what they want to do. I mean, it can be a time-consuming process. I think I had a guy the other day who's like, I thought it was this particular trade, but I just can't wait 2 more years. Like I'm just need to pick something. And it's like, patience is such a virtue. One of the things I loved about Cheryl is that she's actually a stand-up comedian. So she's going to weave in some humor. So that will be fun. And she also has a fashion line where she sews and designs clothes. And she loves spending time with her daughter, granddaughter, and grand doggy. So Cheryl, thank you for being here. Let's just start with you I gave your spiel of who you are and, a little bit about you, but tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dig into the topic.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here, Nikki. I really appreciate it. What I do and help people with are actually skills and techniques that I learned because I suffered from some heavy emotional stresses over the years, anxieties, that kind of thing. So, and also my father was a narcissist, so that just kind of sucks the energy right out of you and really kind of creates a different emotional environment. And until I learned these various things that we've talked about today, I really suffered a lot. I didn't know how to deal with people. Most of the time, I reacted with an angry response. That's what I learned. And it works great when you're younger, but as you get a bit older and into business, into career,
Yeah.
that's not good. Not good. So so I've learned those through books and courses and things I've taken, but also just by taking the action and doing it and feeling the feels, feeling uncomfortable, working through it, and being able to now be in a much better place, I have to say.
You answered my next question, which is like, how did you learn this? Like, is there a certificate out there for how to be more patient? Are there any particular resources that you would recommend to anyone that's like, this is a problem for me, before we dig in?
Well, some of this that's what's going to be on the itinerary of
Okay.
what I'm going to talk about today. I can't say because I don't know. So there might be a certificate for managing impatience, but I'm not sure. But definitely some of the techniques I'm going to talk about are some things that I take people through, like a guided process. They can certainly research it on their own, and I'll let you know what those are a little bit later in the conversation, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and it's a lot of it is, I think the first step is that self-awareness piece. It's realizing that there's something wrong. You may or may not know what it is. You're just really angry. And what these techniques do is they just kind of help you bring out what it is that's making you angry, how you're feeling, and then, okay, what technique can I use to release some of this right now? because there's actually two things I help people with: instant release, because your stress levels like this and you can't stay there because too much adrenaline will cause burnout. Like you can't stay there. So we do this in the interim because, if you're nervous in a meeting or you're about to speak to a crowd of people and you're really nervous, you can do some of these techniques, the short, what I call the immediate ones, but also daily techniques you can practice that set you up from the moment you get up in the morning, and throughout the day you can always jump into them, even for a couple of minutes, and it just brings that line. So you go down, so you're not doing this, you're doing more like a wave, because stressful things are always going to come into your day. They're not going to go away, but instead of getting triggered and spiked, you can go, oh, here comes. Okay, so it just becomes a lot easier for you to handle it.
So let's start with, why are some of us so impatient and why do others seem more naturally patient? Is it how we're wired, or is everyone impatient and some people have just learned to better deal with it? I will say my husband is naturally patient. He is not working on it. He just is, and I am naturally impatient. Who's
Wow,
working
I've
on
just
it?
learned something about you. That's
Yeah.
cool. Well, I wrote down, I've got about 7 things on my list, and I have my list here so I don't forget them. One of the causes, number one, is because your internal and your external states are not a match. So, as an example, if you are, I don't know, let's say you're in traffic and you're in a hurry, you got to get somewhere really fast. You're going to be agitated, you're upset, and you just can't drive fast enough. And up ahead, there's an accident, traffic stopped, it's absolutely quiet. And you're like, that feel, like we've all had that feeling, I think, when we're like that. We're really stressed out, really anxious, and we get impatient. It's like you're beeping your horn, get going, come on, la, 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 all that kind of stuff. So your nervousness inside is not matching the world outside, which is really quiet and calm. That cars aren't going anywhere. Now, on the other hand, if you are calm, if you've created a place of being calm, then it's not going to matter that the traffic stopped. You're going to be okay. Oh, what can I do about this? I can't change the traffic, but I can pick up and call my appointment and tell them I'm stuck here in traffic, I'm going to be late, or shall we reschedule? You can think better, because the amygdala puts you in that fight, flight, or freeze state, and you can't think properly. And you react like in ways that are just not productive.
What
So the internal,
about,
external
sorry,
state, yeah.
let's weave in an example though. So like a lot of my clients, this is about job and careers. And so something I hear over and over is like, yeah, that's all fine and good, but like I have to pay my mortgage. Like I need to pay my like there's like a sense of like urgency, unlike many other things they deal with in their life. So curious on that, when like the stakes are high.
Okay, so they're feeling one of the other points about the pressures that are either they're imposing on themselves or other people are imposing, whether it's a time pressure, financial pressure, peer pressure, or like a higher authority pressure, putting pressure on you. So it's an external thing. So here's the thing about energy. If you are wired and you are uptight and your mindset is, oh my God, is this job coming through? Isn't it coming through? What's going on? I don't know what's happening. The brain, like the mind, the thoughts that fire through the brain are unbelievable. So to calm them down is in your favor. So does it get the job faster? Maybe not immediately, but what it does is it takes that, again, the amygdala thing, the fight flight thing, it calms it down so that your frontal lobe, where all the logical thinking happens and good decision making takes place, you can start to think, okay, I need X number of dollars by May 1st or whatever. So you can then start to think, what can I do in the interim to get some money to be able to put towards the rent or the mortgage or whatever the issue is, right? So you're able to think and become more creative, make better decisions, maybe make a few phone calls, as opposed to being in that static place where it's like, because that gets you nowhere, but it just creates an energy of absolute zero productivity and zero results.
And I'm convinced that that energy doesn't help. Like it comes across in an interview, it comes across in networking. Where I really see networking go awry is when people do have kind of that negative energy and they're like, help me now. Like I needed this yesterday. And it's like,
Right.
it's
Right.
like a golf game. It is like the slowest process to find a job is networking, unless you've been building it and curating it for years. And
Yep.
nobody likes to hear that.
Yes.
But you
And
do
there's a,
bring some of that. And so it's so
yes.
true that like you can think, oh, I'll just skip this part because I have this enormous urgency. But the reality is it does you a disservice.
It does. And there's this little sort of whiff of desperation that you carry with you when you're in that zone. You're hyped, right? Not to say
Mhm.
that you shouldn't care at all or whatever,
Right.
but
Right.
that's not the issue. But yeah, if someone thinks that you're kind of desperate, there's like they're doing this, they're
Yeah.
feeling it already.
Yep.
So that's good. And the other thing too is it could be part of your personality traits, your innate personality. So you mentioned that you're more impatient than
Yep.
your husband. I mean, that's kind of, I don't want to say it's your DNA, but it's just part of who you are.
Yeah.
Now, personality characteristics and personality traits are not permanent. They can be changed a bit. It doesn't mean that you're going to change from let's say, a super impatient person to a really relaxed person. No, but through some of these things that we're going to talk about today, you can at least notice when the impatience is rising, and you can go, okay, this is what we can do to calm it down. So, you can just manipulate some of that energy in your favor. What else? The result. Oh, this is a biggie. When your results don't meet your expectations, that is huge. And we get into like instant gratification, what you think you deserve versus what you're getting. And of course, we're in that world of everything happening fast, right? So everyone's
So
like
fast.
expecting something fast. And just I mean, I joke about what's his name, Jeff Foxworthy, when he talks about, you might be a redneck if, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
Mm-mm.
I thought one of the demonstrations I can use for someone who's impatient in a meeting is, you might be impatient if you're in a meeting and someone's taking too long to get the point across and you have a clicker pan. And because that's what will happen. So it's like, yeah, impatient people will sit there, hurry up, get that point across. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, let's go. Whereas a patient person will just sit there and listen and just roll with the roll with the time.
Do
So
you
so yeah, so always give stick pens, don't give clicker pens.
do you ever think that today's society has led people to be more impatient? Because on the one hand, I can go out and order an oven on Amazon in 2 minutes. My son can go add, 100 friends to Snapchat, but then things like weight loss, finding a job, health, we haven't you can't go on Amazon and be like resume here, job here, I'll take it. So I'm curious, like if as we've gotten more accustomed to that in our lives, is that how does that impact things?
Oh yeah, I mean, technology has, as wonderful as technology is, it's also has created some issues on its own. I mean, take the person who might be under a time frame, a time deadline rather, and they're working on their computer and they want an answer now. That's the person who's not just pressing that return key once. They're going to go,
Yeah.
or someone going to the elevator and they press the button like 24 times. It's like, it's not going to make the elevator car come any faster. Yeah, right. But
Yeah.
I think we get caught up in this energy that I call the speed of life. We're so used to just hurry, that you say something, you get it. You push a button, you get it. You look at something, you get it. And then when you run into something that takes a bit of development, like you mentioned, a career thing, the weight thing, any kind of change, it does take time and consistency, and you have to keep a level of consistency and dedication to whatever that goal is without fail. And just, yeah, knowing that you might not see or hear something back for a while, and it's frustrating, and you think, well, how hard is it for someone just to like give me an email back? Well, we don't know. The thing is, we don't stop to think and be more empathetic on what the other person is going through. How many people have applied for such and such a job? what are they involved in at that, and how many people are going through the resumes, or going through the
Mhm.
qualification process of who to speak to next. We don't know what they're going through, so it's like you kind of have to go shh, you know and
So
it's worth taking the time. It's easy to say, I know.
yeah, that's just it. So like a lot of folks I think can identify I'm very impatient. This is hard for me. What do I do about it? And I always joke, well, if I had a magic answer for that, I wouldn't be here. I'd be a millionaire living on my yachts because, we would have figured out that secret. So what do people do to become more patient?
Well, I think the one of the things is, just educating yourself on what might be happening, that awareness piece that I mentioned earlier. So, first of all, the awareness piece is to, let's start with recognizing impatience. What are the signs? So, because I believe that if you become aware of something, you can do something about it. And I'm a big believer that knowledge isn't power until you put action with it. So you can know a whole lot of things, but if you don't do something, you're not going to get a reaction. So, first of all, look at yourself, and like, when you get impatient, I've got like 8 different things here listed. One of the things is irritability and frustration. I think that goes without saying. Most people feel that way. But you might take impulsive actions that aren't going to work well in your favor. You kind of lose a bit of attention. You stop sort of paying attention to important details. So you might start making mistakes that might lead to failure, which then goes around this cycle and causes stress and leads you back into impatience again because you want to fix it. It can be wicked. That one can be really wicked. You might have poor interaction with others, going back to that meeting where you start interrupting people or finishing their sentences or assuming what they're doing, what they're saying, or what their meaning is, as opposed to asking questions, having a conversation, staying calm, not having that air or that swift of desperation.
Mhm.
Um, Lower productivity, because sometimes people rush through things. They want to get through it, skip steps. They just want to finish it. Just get to the end. What's the answer? Let's go. And then, there's another one about getting caught up in what I call the energy of achievement, aka addiction to the done button. Or, okay, just one more thing. So you're so busy trying to get achievement and getting things done, you're really losing focus on what's happening in the present. So in your conversations with the potential person who's going to hire you, or company that's going to hire you, you might miss the opportunity to ask some really good questions that, they've just said something, but you're in your own head so much that you're not listening, and you're not picking up on some really interesting conversation you can have. So you're missing the good stuff, so you need to acknowledge and celebrate and enjoy some of the wins along the way. So if you have a good conversation with this person, or you pick something up interesting that you can talk about later with this person about your career, it would be really beneficial to try to keep that calmness about you and use some of these techniques.
I love
So
that.
that's how you recognize.
One book that I really like is Atomic Habits. I think it's by James Cleary. I don't know, don't quote me, but if anyone who's watching this wants to Google that book, I think it does a really good job of breaking down to
Yeah,
focus on the process instead of the end results, which I think
yeah,
would be helpful for anyone going through career, job search, or any like thing where it feels like there's a huge sense of urgency. It's like, let's break down the processes.
exactly.
Another point I really liked that you mentioned is that if you're too impatient in the meeting, you may not think about questions you want to ask in an interview. And
Yeah.
I would go one step further to say, you might miss the warning signs, because if you're really impatient in this process, like your gut may be telling you some things like, this is a terrible place. And every job I took that I wasn't happy in, the warning signs were always there. But like, either I was impatient, I was naive, I was younger, but I missed that. And so the worst thing that I hate to have happen to folks is that they go through all of this work and process, and then they're like, oh, shoot, it was there, but I just didn't realize it. So it's another
Yeah.
like added reason to really slow down and remember how important it is.
That's really important. And to support what you've just said too, the company, or I'll just see the person you're speaking to at the company, let's just say, I think that they would be really impressed by the fact that you're listening and asking good, relevant questions to them about whether it's the
Yeah.
role or the company, whatever it might be. So definitely, and on that too, one of the points I wanted to bring up was mismatch of core values, and you touched
Mm.
on that a little bit. If the company you're talking to has core values like this and your core values are like this, then it looks like you could probably do very well together. But if your core values are this and theirs are this, it's like it doesn't match, it doesn't work. So um, I made a mistake in my life exactly with that, um, because I took a job because it paid more. I wanted more money, so I went and I got a job, and they paid more. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. And I didn't fit in. I didn't like how people treated other people in the company, or how they spoke to them, or how they treated clients. And it's like, how did I get here? It's because I did not think properly. Money is great, but that was just the goal I was going for, as opposed to I want to get good money, but in a great environment. So the environment is really, really important. And that's where your core values come in. So I wanted to throw that in because I
That's
think that's really,
so true. And curious on this one, because one thing that I have a lot of empathy for is clients who are older. I think technically 40 is when, age discrimination lawsuits can begin, but
yeah.
really clients in their like 50s, late 50s, early 60s, and they're not done working yet, whether because they can't or they don't want to. I definitely find that they rightfully can be a little nervous about the company not having the right values for them, but sometimes they haven't had any other action going on. So curious about when there's things that are really out of your control, but the reality is that's a real thing. Like,
It
what
is.
advice there? Because that's a
Yeah.
really hard situation to say, pay more, like be more patient, because it's like it could be another like 12 months before you get an interview. I mean, there's things you can do and things I coach them on, but there are certain realities like there, like if you, let's say you were in the print industry and print's kind of dying, like it's a lot harder to make that transition after 25 plus years. So curious there what you have to say, Cheryl, before we
Yeah.
kind of get into more of your techniques.
Sure, no problem. I mean, one thing that's really, really true is you cannot control what other people think. You can't control the world around you. All you can do is control yourself and control your emotions, which is where I live all the time. And so, you know, thank goodness we have the diversity and inclusivity. I'll get it out yet. Inclusivity actions that are happening now in job hiring, because I think that will probably increase a person's chance, regardless of age, gender, race, all of those things. So that's a help. But I think with someone like that, when you're getting older, there's a bit of a mindset switch. If you've been in like one industry for a really, really long time, well, let's take the print industry as an
Yeah.
example. Well, everything's going digital, so you might want to, even it might be begrudgingly, get educated on the digital industry. What sort of, you can talk to people, you can find people, thank goodness, on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. You can go down to a print shop, and in the digital prints, digital industry, digital marketing, and see if you can talk to them, get some time to chat and just see, this is my position. I would love to be employed in this industry. What kind of steps would you suggest I take? Most people want to help. They may not hire you directly, but most people
No.
want to help other people, and they might know someone. So get out and network, for sure. Get in that networking world and start meeting people. And job searches are, to me, it's more of a face-to-face hunt than anything else. Because again, with technology, a job can come up on, say, LinkedIn, and hundreds, thousands of people could
Yep.
throw in a job, their resume or whatever, which how do you pick amongst that, right?
Yeah.
So to me, because I remember hiring, I looked more at a person's attitude. They didn't necessarily have to have direct industry experience to be considered. I like if they have initiative, if they can think on their feet, what have you done in your life that, and I would tie it in
Mhm.
with something that related to the job role that I was interviewing for. So yeah, nothing age was never a factor. Nothing was a factor for me. It's this, you can
What
have all
kind of
kinds of grad disease
steps
degrees.
can people do to stay patient when they're facing that situation? Because I feel like all of those things can sound good, but if you're the one holding the health insurance and like your wife has cancer and like there are just like so many things that come up, and it's like you can tell people this advice and I can too, but it's like when they're really facing it and it's hard, what are some things they can do to really help with being more patient on things they can't control, especially when the stakes are high, both
Yeah,
immediate and long term? Because no
sure.
one really gets into that. Like they talk about it, but it always feels kind of high level and superficial to me. So I love how can we
Absolutely.
help them? Because it's so
Absolutely.
hard.
And it is hard. And the problem is when emotions get involved, it elevates everything, whether it's impatience, frustration, anger, depression, whatever. It just starts to pile up. So my job is to help show people a few things that they can reduce that. I'm going to go into a couple of 4 different areas now, to take some action to help reduce those feelings, either in the short term, as I mentioned before, when they're spiking in the moment, but also things you can do, like daily practices that start to keep you calm so you
Mm,
can think straight, you can think more clearly, and take actions that are more productive to
okay.
help you out in that, in whatever your situation might be.
Mhm.
So I call them, I guess, relief strategies. There's 4 main relief strategies that I want to talk about. One is emotional. I'll come back to them in a moment, but emotional, mental or cognitive, physical, and sensory. So, I think a couple of things that are pretty common you might hear repeated through some of these strategies is like breathing. We've all heard about breathing exercises, getting out in nature. Um, I think music is huge, but I know that sometimes, especially if you're in work or in an office, some things are kind of challenging to do. So I'm going to try to offer a few suggestions that you could do, very subtle things that you could do in a difficult moment when you're sitting face to face with someone. Because I have a course that's out there with over 45 suggestions and a couple of videos. So what works well for you, let's just say, Nikki, may or may not work well for someone else. So that's why I like to provide a lot. So let's take a look first at the emotional relief strategies. Um, what that one centers on, if you want to have a core, um, topic, is basically, togetherness. So being with the ones you love, patting your dog, patting your cat, spending time with your family. That you can't really do at work. I'm just mentioning that is something, but as much as you can't be with someone at work, you can still have a thought. You can think about your loved ones, your kids, your dog, your cat, whoever that is, your partner, and you can do some really, effective thoughts and clear visions as you think about that person, and generate the emotions that you feel when you're with them, even though you're not. And that really that helps calm things down. The second one, the mental or cognitive, is when you focus on something that requires you to think, logically, some logical attention. Because when you are upset, when you're impatient, when you're stressed, because I'm not sure if impatience causes stress or stress causes impatience. I see it as a vicious circle, and I think it just kind of winds it up. But what happens is you just can't think. Getting back to the amygdala story, your amygdala tells your body to send all of its energy resources to the muscles and, everywhere in your body to get ready to run or fight or hide or whatever it is. So nothing goes here. It's just like you can't think, right? So if you're going to do a mental or cognitive relief strategy, it's like one thing I do, and it's kind of fun. It's a song, and it could be a song, it could be a paragraph, and you go to the end of it, you read the paragraph forward, and then you read it backward, word for word. And it sounds kind of goofy and crazy, but the beautiful thing is when you realize when you read something, you actually scan. You're not reading every word. You're kind of jumping over. And you probably don't know you're doing it, but you are. And you get to the end, that's fine. But if you read backwards, each word backwards, you can't jump because you can't anticipate what the next word is because you're looking at it and it's like, you really have to think. You're thinking, thinking, thinking. The other is, you've probably heard this song. I am slowly going crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Crazy going slowly am I. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Simple song, really silly. You get a crowd of people singing it, and you go faster, faster, faster. But when you do the first verse forward, that's not so hard. When you start going backwards, it's like crazy going slowly. Yeah, it makes you think. So it burns the stress out. You're not impatient anymore. You're not thinking of that's not even in your mind because you're thinking of all these things going backwards. Crossword
Okay.
puzzles or something else, to give
Let me
another
challenge
example.
you there. I'm curious there because I know some of my clients, they're thinking, give me a break. They're
I
thinking,
mean,
you want me? My wife has cancer. I need health insurance, and you're telling me to sing this silly song, Nikki. Um,
well,
but
that's just one of,
no,
I've got,
no, but like,
yeah,
let's help them understand like why. Because or how do people find what works for them? Because we all have such different personality types. I could
that's
see
right.
that song working really well for some of my clients. For
Sure.
other folks, I'm like, no. But so I'm just so curious, like I
Well,
could see some of them rolling their eyes on that. So I want to see what else you have to say on it. Cause I'm just like, yeah, I can see a few of them being like, yeah, maybe if my boss is bothering me, that's like helpful. But what do I do when like I got another rejection and unemployment's running out? Like I just,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious there. Like when the stakes are high, I feel like what do people do? Because some of the advice folks give feels so cliche when their emotions are high. And I know you can say regulate the emotions and all of
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
let's say they're working on that and they're still just like, I'm such a wreck.
Well, that's like we've just talked about two of them. I'll go through a couple more. And I said a bit earlier, what works for one person isn't going to work for someone else. And I agree with you that singing that song isn't going to work for someone. Someone who's kind of in a different mindset isn't going to do that. That's fine. Like there's tons of different things. Get physical, get moving, burn that adrenaline off that's tied up with that anger, and then, or anger, the impatience, the frustration, because then you can think, okay, I'm really having a problem. My partner is really, really ill. I'm under a lot of stress. So when you get rid of or reduce, I won't say get rid of, but reduce that stress, you're in a frame of mind that lets you think, well, what kind of government agency can I call? What kind of medical advice can I find that might help my partner? What kind of support can I get from my bank to help me cover the financial costs that we're running into? That type of thing may have to come into it, but you're better equipped to do that when you get that diffusion, that stress diffused, if that makes any sense. Maybe you need to go beyond what I have. And I have no problem with saying, hey, get to a professional, get some professional help to help you work through this. And they're going to get you talking with and you're going to basically talk and lift off what you're going through. They may or may not be able to help you with any other thing. But if it's really affecting you in a way that's getting dangerous, then sure, get professional help. But if you can do some of these things to help alleviate some of that stress, then I think you're in a better position to think clearly and find more creative solutions for getting help, asking for help. That's one of the things when you get into like that's one of the emotional things. Ask for help. People love to help other people. And when you're dealing with some of these stresses, sometimes you feel like you're all alone in the world and there's nobody there to help you. But there is, and you have to ask people sometimes for some help. And, at least if you're asking people in the right areas, I really think these people could get some help. You can't change the condition of your partner. You can't change anything that's happening in this moment. But by getting frustrated and getting impatient and trying to push it, you're not doing yourself or your partner or anyone else any favors by, trying to push something you don't even know what you're pushing, really. Because the last thing is sensory, by sensory, I mean like things that you can do that I call it me time, that deal with the senses. And one of the things I do, I'm a certified EFT practitioner. EFT is emotional freedom technique. It's tapping, and it's not the dancing tapping. It's something else, because our body has different medians, energy medians in our body. So between our inner eyebrow, our temples here, under the eye, under the nose, the chin, collarbone, under the arms, look like a monkey here, and then on the top of our head. That's something I do every single morning. I just spend a minute or two just doing that, and my whole day goes, I feel ready for my day. But when you are peaked, and that was actually the first thing I learned, which is why I wanted to get certified. When I was freaking out over 20 years ago about stuff, I could not even think straight. I couldn't put two and two together. So I started to learn this technique, and I could literally feel the emotions coming out of my body, all the anger, all the frustration, all the whatever was there, because sometimes you can't even identify it. You're so peaked, right? So just there's a wonderful method where you go and you just kind of tap on these spots, and these energy medians start to open up, and you release this energy, and you can literally feel it going. I was in tears the first time I did it. And then you can fill it back up. You've emptied the garbage. Now you've got a nice clean bin. You can fill it with good things. And it's a bit of a practice, and we probably don't have time to actually go through that today. Because again, it's something different. Some people go for it, some people won't. But
For
I think the key is to try all these different types of things, and see what works for you.
for those that aren't familiar with that, can you give us a little more background on like the theory behind it? Because I'm familiar with it, especially from practicing yoga, but let's say someone's like, I don't know what she's talking about, like,
Yeah.
so that they're a little motivated to look into it further. Talk a little bit about that just so that they can kind of get a little more understanding on that. Cause I'm curious, like, similar to like acupuncture, some people really
Yep.
buy into it, some don't, but like, what is the premise behind it? I'm
Sure.
curious on that.
Sure. It's our bodies have various points. I'll just I call them tender points, or uh yeah, meridians they call them, and it's tied in with different energy places in your body. And they're also relating to some of the organs of your body. So, when you get tight, and when you get frustrated, let's just say, you can feel it in different areas of your body. Some people feel it in your throat, some feel it in their chest. I tend to feel it in my tummy. It could happen anywhere. So one thing that I talk to people about, if you're sitting in a meeting or you're sitting down in front of somebody and you're starting to feel really agitated, there's points on your hand that I've got my left hand up here. Your heart and your stomach are located sort of in here, very close to the palm of your hand. So if you're feeling kind of agitated, you can literally go in. I take my knuckles and I just go in and do a little circle here. I'll just show you open-handed. But if you're sitting in a meeting, you can push on it really hard. You'll feel some tender spots, and I encourage you to push on the tender spot as much as they hurt a little bit. But if you do those things, you can literally, I'm just going to continue doing it, you can start to feel this type of relaxation in your body. Like for me, it's in my stomach or in my chest area. And you might give an involuntary sigh, like, and that is your signal that's telling you that your body has responded, and it's starting to calm down and relax. Or you might yawn. That's another typical response. So that's one thing. I love the collarbone spot because it's easy to access. It's like just sort of down from that little V bone in your neck and across about 3 fingers right in here. And you can do both at the same time or one. And I find that calms me down really fast, especially if I feel that impatient thing happening in traffic. I'll sit there and just tap. Let's say I'll drive with my left hand and tap with my right. And it's like, I calm down. I don't have that, like, if someone cuts me off or whatever, it's like, oh, you got to keep your hands on the wheel. You can't do this. So keep your head on the wheel, and you can tap here and just keep going, and fairly hard, so that you can feel it. And if there's a tender spot in there, good, keep hitting that, because that's a sign that you're getting through to that tender point. And then I'm just feeling that sigh now. Sorry. That's how I react, that involuntary sigh. But it really helps. And one of the things I joke about is, like, if you're feeling a headache come on, for heaven's sake, don't take pills. Don't take pills. You probably, some people rub their temples or do this, and it doesn't take long before it starts to go away. You can tap your third eye up here, and that's another point that helps kind of calm the vagus nerve, which is in control of so many areas of your body. And if someone's really bothering, you can do this, but that's a whole other story. It just, all these different things really help. And that's EFT or tapping. These points are acupressure. They use them in reflexology. And another thing is called havening. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Nikki, but it's a really lovely self-soothing thing. Probably not something you do in the office for one of these moves, but I'll show you a move you can do. I find this very self-soothing, and you just stroke your arms from the shoulders down to your elbows. And it's very soothing. It's like somebody's like hugging you and holding on to you. And if you want, like, you can, some of the words that we like to repeat are things like safe, peaceful. Now look at, I'm doing this breathing again. Hopeful, calm. And you just keep repeating that: safe, peaceful, hopeful, calm. And because I'm even slowing down, you could see me slowing down. That's natural. I'm not doing it on purpose, but you just start to feel that calmness. Another thing, you could do it this way and repeat those words. So that's a little bit less sort of obvious in an office environment.
So let me
Yeah,
ask a quick
or you can do them.
question.
Yeah.
One thing a lot of people say is to meditate. Can you
Yeah.
tell us how these things may be different from meditation, or why they may work better or worse? Curious there, because those meditation you hear everywhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff people don't. So I am curious, like, what you would
Yes.
say if someone said, well, should I do this? Should I meditate? Like, why do these things work? I'm curious.
Well, I'm a believer in meditation. I think meditation for me is one of those practices that you do on a regular basis to build up resilience against the emotions that build when you are impatient, frustrated, stressed. Now, because I do it daily, I can, if I was in a moment, let's say today, working on a project, and I was starting to feel a little elevated, I could probably meditate and be relaxed again within a few minutes, let's say 5 minutes or less, because I do it all the time. Sometimes, like, meditation is not like, you don't have to play a sitar or sit with all kinds of other things for an hour, candles and all that stuff. Some people do. I just find that it's a moment to, some people say, clear their mind. I don't go that way. I kind of go, I focus my mind on my body and relaxing bit by bit, relaxing my muscles, feeling the tension move out of I'm already doing it. Oh my God. Feeling the tension moving out of my body bit by bit, like it's almost like a scanner. I kind of scan all the way down. And if something is feeling really tight, say my shoulders, I'll just stay there for a few minutes and just say, okay, let it go, let it go, let it go. And then as I go, I will guarantee you there'll be a thought coming in your mind. And what I envision when I'm going through this, and I always keep my eyes closed when I'm doing it, but my vision is of a beautiful beach, and it's my own personal thing. You make it yours. Beautiful beach. I'm sitting in this area that has a window on the right side of the room and a window on the left side, and there's beautiful curtains billowing in the breeze. An idea or a concept might come in my mind. So it does. I don't think about it. I just go, okay, let's talk about that later. And then it goes out the other, I push it out the other window. And then I'm fine for a while and just calm and peaceful. And then something else, I should be really doing this and that and the other thing. Da, 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 da. Yeah, well, we'll just do that a bit later. And then it goes out there. So I just kind of acknowledge it briefly and then say, put it somewhere in the calendar. Okay, later. Because I don't know how you can, for me, I don't know how you empty your mind. I don't know how you clear your mind. I personally can't do it. There's always something in there. So it's like, okay, rather than having it sit there and fight for attention, it's like, I see you, talk to you later. I see you, talk to you later. So that to me is an effective way of meditating. For me, 20 minutes is fantastic amount. 20 to 30 minutes is really, really good. But if you can do short sessions during the day, that's good too. The thing is, when you're in a business environment and you're spiking, you can't just say, well, I'll be right back in 20 minutes. I'm just going to go meditate. So meditation is very good. There's no question about it. But, it's a bit of a practice, and it's something that I like to take people through on a guided process until they have it on their own, and then they can do their own thing. It's all about teaching people to find solutions that work for them, put it in their action plan when they need it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Even simple things like go for a walk. You might
Yep.
have a job where you can't do that. Like if you're a teacher, you
Yeah.
can't just leave your classroom. And oftentimes your breaks are not long enough to, like, you can't go to the grocery store and aimlessly like get dinner for the night. So sometimes some of the advice, it is difficult because it wouldn't be culturally appropriate to like do this for 20 minutes in a meeting with the CEO.
Exactly.
But in the bathroom, you can get away with it. I am a big believer in like, can you go to the bathroom and do some things? Versus crying in the stall, or
Yes.
Oftentimes I used to reserve conference rooms for things, and I would like do some stretching or yoga, or I'd try and build it in when I knew it was like kind of a crummy day, or you can sometimes tell when they're coming.
Absolutely. And depending on the type of work you do as well, if you're allowed to play music at your desk with earphones or earbuds or whatever, find the music that really helps you, helps elevate you, gives you some energy and takes the negativity out, because our brains are designed to default to the negative. So if something's not feeling good, we immediately think, oh, what happened there? Oh, he said this, or I said that, or all that negative, and it just builds one on the other, right? So if there's music that brings you up and elevates you, play it. Play your favorite songs, get it up there. If you can do that.
I love the picture example too, to like mentally picture something like your kids, your dog, a vacation.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
about the physical act of like bringing pictures into your office or having on your phone? Is that helpful?
I think it is. I mean, it's nice for you to glance over and see your children, let's just say, and it just kind of puts a smile on your face because it usually relates to something emotionally, highly emotional for you. So it picks you up, it makes you feel better. So absolutely, bringing those types of things in is a great idea. Listening to nature sounds, again, going back to the music, but listening to rain or the ocean waves, things like that, it's very calming. You'll find yourself breathing in time with the waves at some point. But yes, anything like that is really, really helpful. Anything you can do to sort of lift you up above where you are. You've probably heard of muscle muscle relaxing, right? And it's like you tense your shoulders, you let them go, you tense your shoulders, or wherever you feel tight. That's a really good one. And again, it's that subtle thing. Not everyone's going to know what you're doing, so you don't have to be embarrassed about doing these things. I mean, if you don't tap, if you just press on a point, that works as well. And just anything you can do. But I think the key to all of this is to start to become aware as early as possible when it's rising, because all too often we don't see it coming, we don't feel it, and all of a sudden we're here, and that's when we display some really potentially negative behaviors. Something that could be harmful for your job search or your new role that you want to apply for. So if you can catch it as it's sort of starting or as it's on the way up, apply some of these techniques, then just feel it go down, then I think you're in much better place to deal with some of the other things that are still to come, because stress never stops. you know it's just one of those things in our life, but let's lower that spike and make more of a wave or a curve.
So as we wind up here, Cheryl, you had mentioned before you had like 45 different techniques. Obviously, in an hour, we can't capture everything on how to be more patient. So how do people find you and get access to the techniques and some of the things you have to offer? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I have a mini course on my website that goes through. There's 3 modules, but it gives education as well as this actionable strategies that people can take. So, because I like people to understand what's going on in your brain and what's going on in your body and why it's happening, and then these techniques. Then, because all these different points relate to the points in your body that are being effective, you can literally put an end to the fear of burnout. So it's 3 modules about self-awareness. I call it the stress whisperer, or stress whispering techniques that help you tame those tigers, right? Tame those triggers. So it's 3 modules. There's quite a bit of information. I go through all the different, those 4 main relief strategies, and then I've got, I think, 4 bonus videos in there that I literally take people through um, the steps so that they can practice it with me. And once they apply for the course, once they get the course, they can, of course, access it anytime they want and use those things when they want and start practicing and see what works for them. I'm always interested in what works for each person, because it's always different. It's not always the same technique that people go into. But yeah, try them all out. Try them out. See what feels good.
Let's end on this one. I'm curious, what would you say is your biggest success story where you've seen a client really use this and make changes in their life or career that they may not have had otherwise?
Wow. Okay. Um, I think, oh wow, which one shall I pick? Okay, I
It'll help
think
motivate people that might be dragging their feet on doing the work. So that's why it's like, let's remind them where they can get.
that's really good. And a lot, I'm just trying to think of one that ties in with impatience as well, because that's kind of what we're looking at here. And yeah, it's someone that I worked with a few years ago. She was my client, and she's been in her role for a while. Same company, kind of the same role. She may have moved from department to department, whatever. And she wants to expand. She wants to move up in the company, because she knows what she's doing backwards and forwards. And she feels that she would be more effective and enjoy her role more if she could be the next level up and then work with people that are currently at her level to work with their teams more effectively. Because her team, because there were different leads, team leads, right? And she was a team lead, and her team was always productive. They were always hitting their targets, always doing great. Not that the other ones weren't, but she was just number one all the time, her group. And there was just something that she did and all the qualities she had, but she wanted to move up and like, oh, I really want to do this. And everything she did was fast, speak fast, be in front of somebody fast. And it's almost like, I'm trying to think of a cartoon character, but I can't at the moment. But it's like, how you'll see in a cartoon where there's a character here and then they're up here. That's kind of her energy. And it's like over here, oh, I see so-and-so. Hey, what's going on with that job? And getting back to that desperation thing. So people were like, oh, that she was talking to people who were not high energy people. They were more sort of logical, step-by-step procedural people. So we talked a little bit about it, and I recommended some ideas that her personality would be better off talking to that person in a lower energy, a little bit slower, give them some facts, give them stats that you've produced, give them information. And I could see that she was kind of twitching because that's not her thing, right? But I said, be patient. I'll work with you on it. Let's do this, because they're step-by-step people. Let's work on a step-by-step. program to help you speak their language, so to speak, and get into their energy level and get them to trust that you can do it. I mean, obviously, you're creating good results here, but they also have to feel comfortable in recommending you for the role because their name's on it. So you gotta, there's a few steps, and she just thought it was like, well, I just have to talk to them, and they'll make a decision. No, no, it's a little few more steps in between. So once we laid out kind of here's reality, and these are some of the steps you could take to get there. Let's work on this. Getting back to that book, right? Atomic Habits. Stop small things, small steps. Break it down. Let's start with this. Then once that's done, let's move to that. And so as much as she was still like the engine was still kind of pumping, when we sat down and she started to see that, oh, I've got that step done. That's great. And she was anxious to get to the next one. She kind of rushed it a bit, but it's like, okay, what might be missing? Is everything there that you need? So I was slowing her down, but not in sort of I wasn't punishing her. You know what I mean? It's just like getting her to think a little bit differently. And it helped her in other ways after that, because she could then start those little small steps, atomic, moves the same way. So she started to learn to calm down. And I was telling her about all these things. When you're feeling anxious, do this. Or she liked this one. She really liked that one. Or this is another one. There's another one on your baby finger. I mean, there's all kinds of tons of things you can do. So when she started to feel what she said, she got agitated because I just wanted to happen. I wanted, okay, what is your chosen technique? Oh, okay, I'll do that. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this. And then, okay, now that you're calmed down, let's look at the next step. And it taught her, I guess I coached her really into helping her coach herself. Because when I'm not there, you still need to be able to do this. So I like to coach people in how to coach themselves over time so that when they run into it, they know what to do. So she got the job, by the way, eventually.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Cheryl. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
How can
thanks.
people get a hold of you later? Let them know where to best find you.
Sure. My email is cheryl@cherylgregory.com. And my website is cherylgregory.com. And if you go to cherylgregory.com/shop, you'll find that stress whispering course in there. If you're interested, that's great. Sign on up. If you have any questions, there's a contact form on my site. I'm really open to hearing anything anybody has to say, any questions you might have. So Thanks for
Awesome.
attending.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nikki. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed that today. Thanks so much.